My name is Lancon with Pi Architects. I'm an intern architect here at Pi, and that means I'm working with about 4 or 5 other people per project, and other draftsmen, project architects, and even project manager. My job is to kind of get into the nitty-gritty and get the overall designs kind of fleshed out into the computer. And we usually phase a project out in terms of master planning if it requires that, and then we kind of move towards a schematic design. It's still somewhat sketchy, but they like to see something printed, with hard lines, and you get a square footage, and you kind of have the space plan of the building. Then we move into a design development, where we're now kind of rigorously figuring out what are the dimensions for those rooms, what's the footprint actually going to be, and then once all that's kind of been settled, we finalize with construction document phase, and that's just hashing out everything that you need to know in order to build this building. So I'm a part of all those phases usually, and some of the more difficult ones you would think would be the construction document phase. But a lot of the initial tasks that are most taxing for, at least for me, an intern architect, are in the schematic design phase, where they want to change their minds daily. They might have a client meeting where they'll talk over 4 or 5 different options. And that next meeting, that following week, they want to see those 4 or 5 options fleshed out. They want to see, what are the circumstances and the issues involved with those options, and kind of get all, the most well-rounded opinion they can have. So for me and the team I'm working with, that's going to involve us designing different versions of this same plan, either right on top of one another or next to one another in the model space that we go into designing these buildings, and that pretty much means we have to keep up with the different options that they choose as they go on. So these projects come really big just during that schematic design phase before we finalize the design and move forward. So that's the overall pipeline. During that, I would say, especially towards the design development phase, the clients want to start to see a rendering. They want to see what this thing's going to look like if I'm standing outside in front of it, or what's this room look like. And if they have a large client base, they're going to want to have marketing material to go ahead and show to them. So some of these renderings, they might be sort of quick sketches. They might like a sketch mode of a line drawing, make it feel more like an idea than a solid thing. But sometimes they need marketing material, and they want to see something that's more finalized, something that looks almost photorealistic. And I would say that's newer for our industry. Everybody is familiar with really high-end CG movies that are doing these great photorealistic computer graphics. And so they just think, oh, computers, if you're using computers, you can do that too with your buildings. And we're like, well, we need, we have to be able to work that into our pipeline, because we don't make all of our money with the time spent just on these renderings. Our bread and butter are the construction documents, are the schematic designs that we put out that the client likes, and that's our product. So these renderings, they need to be done fast, but they need to be done accurately, because we have different materials specified for these buildings, and the plan has to be accurate to the actual site that's there and what's going to be there. So I have to take into account existing things that are there that they're expecting to see. If there's a shot that we're going to get down the road, we need to see those existing buildings that are already there. So those have to be modeled. And then you have to model what is going to be the building that they decided on. And if anything looks off, they're always going to point out the wrong thing first. That's the thing that they're going to catch, and it always causes trouble. So it's up to us to kind of get as much figured out, even inferred, to kind of push that conversation along, make sure they're not getting hung up on something that is obviously wrong or not thought about. And even if they don't touch upon that, that is something that we still know that was kind of a thing we threw in to be able to develop later. So the renderings kind of not only help the client, but they help us, especially in talking amongst the team. Yeah, this is what I thought this was going to look like. Is this what we're going to use? And so they might change their minds later based on that rendering. That might all happen at once, where you've got schematic design phase, then the design development, and between those you might ask for rendering. So my little team of 4, at least one person, usually myself, is going to be taken out for a week to focus on renderings, and that means there's no more design development being done. So it's what clients expect, but it can be the most time-consuming part. But that's where I think having a good system comes in. Most of our drafting, the CAD work is almost exclusively done in ArchiCAD. Our firm's set up to have a landscape department where we have landscape architects working in tandem with the architects, and then we also have an interior design department. And the interior design and the architecture departments both work in ArchiCAD. And the landscape department, because they interface more with our civil engineers, they're quicker with AutoCAD. Most of their drawings remain 2D, so they don't need to worry about a whole lot of 3D information. Whereas once we get their sites and I have to do a rendering, I'm going to have to start to pop up what is otherwise 2D typography to get that to read properly. And so we usually model that as part of the buildings, but it doesn't get as detailed until you want to pick that shot for your rendering. Then we need to figure out, okay, the slope does this at the drive versus at the entry, and it gets a lot more detailed at that point. We found a nice solution with Advent Atlantis, and they kind of interface really well with Graphisoft ArchiCAD. It has a pipeline where I can take whatever I want out of ArchiCAD or even out of SketchUp if I'm modeling very precise things. Because we're not doing a whole lot of organic stuff, so I don't need a bigger package to do 3D modeling with. But usually for the exterior shots, I'll start with what we have modeled in ArchiCAD and export that to SketchUp, where I might do some finer details, add those light fixtures, add the park bench, and kind of get the scene set up in SketchUp, and then that gets exported into Atlantis, where it's kind of a quick way to get our lighting in there, get some extra effects, and have that just output straight from Atlantis. So then that final rendering can be put through Photoshop and have some post-processing effects applied, and then we get a final output that can be blown up for marketing boards and whatnot. I became aware of BOXX through, I guess, internet forums, hearing about sort of CG graphics, what the people in the movie industry use, and that was before I ever got hired at Pi Architects. When I was asked, what system could we get to upgrade what we had, the investigating I did, I wanted to compare. I knew that we needed a more robust system, a workstation level system for what we did, because my background with other firms were just straight up AutoCAD 2D drawings, but now with ArchiCAD we're doing 3D BIM models, and that's 3D graphics. I mean, you have to fly around the model, you gotta push and pull things. I mean, it's modeling, and so I thought, well, I mean, it's got to be similar to kind of what they do with the movie industry and CG graphics. I mean, in a different way. So I looked up what I remembered about BOXX and basically kind of checked out the specs and the pricing, and it kind of made sense for what we did. With my personal experience in computers, it didn't have anything I wouldn't want for an architecture firm. And I think what we got in return for all of that has been well worth it. And, I mean, we've purchased over 12 of them now, so it's been a really good deal. When I started at the firm, they had all of our draftsmen working on Apple iMacs and Mac Pros. So It wasn't until I started interfacing with our IT management group about exactly how long and how difficult it was for them to have to jump over the driver hurdles and updates and new systems purchase, that kind of thing, to get through the sort of the whole boot camp system, to get the Windows 7 that we're running now, to have all of our software work on top of that was an issue. And so when I was asked or approached about what system we could get for new people, the old iMacs we were working on, they wanted something sleek, they wanted something simple, but that's just not the nature of a workstation. You have to be able to adapt. You got to get the latest stuff installed. The more easy you can make that, the better it will be. And I just don't think something like an iMac, which might be great for artists and probably strictly Adobe and Photoshop users, that kind of thing, doesn't pair as well, especially when you're trying to run Windows on it, to get all the software you actually need to work with daily. So I figured we should get an optimized system just for that, rather than sort of a catch-all system that is otherwise easy to haul around and things. We just need something that can get the job done. So switching from the iMacs to something like a BOXX workstation has been a breath of fresh air for everybody involved. We haven't had any issues from that point on, so it's been pretty good. The first ones we purchased were 4150s. Those came overclocked, which was a big plus for me. You could see the speed increase, trifold over what we had the year prior. After we purchased a few of those, when we needed to hire more people right on, I made the case. We were able to get the 4920s Extreme, which have been outstanding performance, amazing. You can see on just the year-old iMacs that we've been using that even for as high-end as they were when they came out, aren't even half as fast as what we were able to get for not that much more. And the fact that we can swap out the monitor and hook it up to whatever kind of system we want to has definitely kind of meant an overall performance increase, not just on the systems but the people using it. They've just been easier to work with, I think, especially for my time interfacing with the IT management group we have. I have to spend less time now just because they aren't having to boot up the machine into the Mac side to update a driver and then back into the Windows side to update that same driver, or spend extra research time making sure that the software is going to work on a Windows system that's installed on a Mac system. And that whole pipeline has been significantly decreased just because you're getting something that's some software that's designed for the system you're working on. So having a fast system be able to generate a mobile file that quickly, just the hour before a meeting is to start, is something that kind of opens the doors for kind of a future development. Like we could set that up as a pipeline where you could say we have an hour before this meeting, get me the latest version of that model, and I could export it, and you could have it on your iPad hooked up to the TV for the conference room, and they could be seeing the latest version of what we've been working on that same day in a format that's presentable. So having BOXX systems be able to do that on the fly is really useful for, I think, pushing the envelope on having presentations that are not taking up as much time as they would have to put together. So you can spend more time developing your project, developing the details and the certain aspects of it, and less time having to set up that presentation. Like, now you go make that presentation. That's a job that not a lot of people want to do. So because it takes you off. It takes you off of the primary product that we're trying to put out here. So working with the boxes that we have now has, I guess, definitely been a lot easier for me, having to deal with. I've been designated the IT person here in the office, so I get to be the guy that deals with our IT fellows behind the scenes that are actually updating the server and checking the network. And for the year and a half that I've been here, having the BOXX systems in-house now for the last year has given me a whole lot more time to not have to worry about any of that. Being able to not have another call come in from the IT guys saying, hey look, we just logged out of the Mac side, can you boot up the Windows side so we can get back in? Like that whole thing was at least a weekly occurrence, almost an every other day thing, where just, look, I can't, I mean, we don't want to pay for them to come into the office. We don't want to have to keep paying that extra hour for them just to install a driver update, and they can't even do it overnight because they can't get back in to update the systems because they like to do everything remotely. Well, now we can. It just, you keep it in Windows, you keep it on a box, and it works. Faster system, more specialized for what we need it for, and upgradable. I mean, easy IT support and good discounts. I mean, it's been a good deal overall. We've been happy.